Going on, friends? This is Rick, and you're seated at the table, and we're going to talk about Battletech and MechWarrior and everything in between, all that other stuff. This is the novel "The Sword and the Dagger" by Ardan Sortek, and it is one of the earliest published novels for the Battletech universe, right up there along with Decision at Thunder Rift, you know, from the Great Death Saga. Uh, this novel, and it's, some people might ask, since most of my gig is just reviewing game material for the games that I've had in the past that I still own, so why are we, what does that stuff got to do with a novel? Why does this matter? And there's some elements to BattleTech that, if you're a fan of Middle Earth, of J.R. Tolkien's, if you ever played any of the game systems that were created to play in that world, the novels are key to everything. They set the pace, they set the backstory, they set the genre, they set the flavor. Most importantly, they set the flavor of the game. But long before the Game of Thrones ever came out, A Song of Ice and Fire, it has been a go-to for numerous novel series and game systems and stuff. This grand epic of person against person, house against house. It's just this huge thing. And to understand the basics of Battlemech and Battletech and MechWarrior, why do we, other than just the sheer play and fun of it, I mean, if that's what you're into, then none of it matters. But to understand the bigger picture, to get the vibe and the flavor and the feel of things, to what's going on, what's pertinent, and your little corner of that big, vast tapestry that's in never-ending change. These novels play a huge role in that aspect. That from the novels, things are introduced as game canon. Game canon influences the novels. Now, there's a series of podcasts on YouTube, and I will put a link to the creator's website below, that where he interviews the various authors and artists and so on and so forth who've been involved in the creation of this franchise for decades. And they really do an awesome job of explaining what I'm doing in a very bad, ham-fisted, bumbling way. When we look at things like The Sword and the Dagger, this particular book might have been the second or third one that came out. I want to say maybe the second one. I don't quote me on that because I can't give you an exact timeline, and I know that I'm sure that they exist. This was copyright 1987, 2 years after I graduated high school. So early Battletech. This is the setting for a great set of internal conundrums, and I'm stumbling over this because sometimes it's hard for me to articulate what I want to say in my head. And we'll say, let's see. 5 houses' successor states employ both warfare and treachery in their efforts to gain control of the interstellar empire, once known as the Star League. Huge, man-like walking tanks called Battlemechs rule the battlefields, but intrigues and plots rule the imperial courts. Hanse Davion is Prince of the Federated Suns, largest of the 5 warring houses, an idealistic man who has had to learn that politics is never honorable nor straightforward. Ardan Sortek is the commander of Hanse Davion's personal guard. Although a longtime friend of Hans, he has not yet learned the lessons of power. Through the chance of series of events, he stumbles across a plot of such magnitude that threatens to balance the power of the inner sphere. Unfortunately, no one will believe him. Indeed, they think he is quite mad. So, in a nutshell, Hanse Davion is the second son of the former head of House Davion, and his older brother Ian was the one who assumed the throne when their father passed away. Then Ian's killed in a battle. By House Krita forces. So Hanse Davion finally finds himself thrust into a position of power that he was not really trained for, and had his own unique views on things. And one of his many things that he was looking at was trying to recapture the knowledge and technology lost from the inner sphere, and that's a whole set of videos by itself. He also had to come to grips. He had a lot of, like Ardan, who's 10 years his junior. Ardan was this young kid that hung on to everything that Hanse did, as children will do, and he was infatuated, and they become really good friends because Ian treated him when Hanse was a teenager. He treated Ardan with respect and like not quite an equal, but not as that stupid nosy kid, but a really good. He tried to treat him well. And they become really good friends. And so Hanse gets into power, and he realizes that the art of compromise is probably more important than ideals. You have all kinds of ideals, but you never get anything done. One of the Byzantine politics of the inner sphere is that these great houses, while they do have an ultimate ruler, so to speak, they don't rule ultimately. No house has 100% control over how everything is run in their kingdom. And in part, this is where this medieval flair gets folded into the sci-fi, because the sheer distance and size and difficulty of communications and moving things around, it can take months to move forces and supplies and physically take a note or a command to a far-flung planet and their ruler, their leader. So they have this medieval kind of everybody, the pyramid, where the house lord and then has secondary nobles who then rule entire regions of the house, and from beneath them are lesser nobles who then may rule an entire planet or sections of a planet. Or in a lot of houses, many of the planets have like in the Federated Suns, a lot of their planets are democracies in function. There are numerous types of governments that run on the provincial level, on the planetary, or even on the continental level, but in turn everybody owes to the next layer up, and it all kind of plays out this way. So you have to play a lot of juggle. You got to juggle a lot of things. You got to play a lot of people off each other, and to maintain your own control and power. And the old adage is a dagger in the back is more powerful than a whole battalion of sword wielding monkeys in the front, because you can accomplish a lot of things with either or. So there's a plot hatched by Maximilian Leal of House Leal and others, which are never quite, other than some retainers and some people close to the Devon family who turned out to have either be totally disillusioned by the way Hanse was going, or had their own beliefs in how they should be in charge, etc., etc. They hatched this plot to create a doppelganger of Hanse. And in the process, they expose Ardan to this quote blank slate of a Hanse that isn't quite yet been activated. And we're at the beginning of this great political ploy by House Devon and House Steiner to have Hanse marry Melissa Steiner and which would eventually become the Federated Commonwealth, the most powerful entity in the inner sphere for 300 years since House Cameron and the fall of Starleague. So, and of course, it works for a while, and then it has its own problems. Sheer size and ambition always causes problems, and this is one of the reasons we don't see a world empire on our Earth. And it's never succeeded. We've seen large empires come and go, but at the end of the day, they go. They don't sustain themselves. They fall apart. They self-disintegrate, in part because of the machinisms of people that are in charge at the time, and in part because the people allowed them to get away with it until it's too late to fix it or change it. Anyway, I'm not going to get into a diatribe about modern issues today, but anyway. So it sets the tone and the flavor of the bigger picture for the campaign. If you're a mech warrior and you're part of a merc lance or part of a house unit, your units are being sent into combat or conflict against opposing forces for numerous reasons. And it's quite realistic to find, you can invite an entire campaign inside an internal house, where elements within a house are in conflict with each other, whether openly or under the table, and you can be role-playing your way through that. Or you could be tabletop wargaming your way through a scenario like this. The sheer amount of possible scenarios for Battletech is just It's unlimited. It's only limited by people's imaginations, and this helps fuel those imaginations. It also helps give us an idea of the working understandings of how friendship and power and ultimate power and responsibility are all intertwined, in my opinion. If you ever get a chance to read this book, it's an awesome book. It's a great book. Like I said, it gives you great insight into what's going on in the inner sphere. One of my earliest, just beginning my videos for Battletech, like I said in my opening gambit, I suspect I could be doing these videos for a long, long time because there's such amount of stuff in here that we just simply can't cover every possible scenario. So when I look at this stuff, and I thought this is something I want to include in my channel, and I think it is. And these other novels, they don't all play a role, but they do motivate the world and how it changes. I've got, for you role-playing fans, for you gaming enthusiasts, each genre, each franchise has its own differences, its own flavor. You all know this. Dungeons and Dragons is such a sandbox of possibilities but there's no overriding theme and link. Although you get that to some degree. If you play any of the Forgotten Realms related stuff, you're doing Fey Run and all the canon and beta stuff we know of Fey Run, and all the ups and downs and things that go with it. Battletech's the same way. MechWarrior's the same way. There's this misunderstanding by older players. Most of the younger people today who have been around this game system so long, they understand it's not the same. You play those video games and things like that. It's just the video games. It's just a digital version of a tabletop war game, which is great, right? If you can afford the equipment to play it, if you grew up on it, you're still getting exposed to it. But the motivations behind those scenarios, those things that you do, it's not, unless you're playing Solaris where you just go out and gladiator combat, as a player, you may not care about the bigger picture or the whys, the wherefoots, and the how-fors. But somebody did and still does deeply, and they influence those creators who create those games you love and play. And so that's why they're so tied into the paper versions. And all this stuff feeds the mind and the imagination, in my opinion, right? And if I did a good job of this or not, I don't know. If I just kind of hacked it up and turned it into some whack job stuff, my apologies, but I am still trying to do my best. Till next time, this is Rick, and your seat at the table.